look, bad news to start with, and let's just get right to it. Right after OTAs happens, you find out that Jeff Wilson Jr. is probably going to miss 4 to 6 weeks with a torn meniscus. He has surgery to repair it. Obviously, this is a blow. But for the people who are confused about why the 49ers would forego getting a wide receiver in the draft, they drafted 2 running backs. This kind of makes sense.
That's the first place my mind went. But I was just thinking, man, look, if he hurt himself in the offseason away from the facility, they could have cut him. Now, they may not. But they could. So I don't know. It's a mystery, man. What do you think?
So that's the mystery. And that's what I was going to ask you. Did this happen today? Did this happen during the offseason? And for the same reason. So like you said, let's just say it happens off facility. Remember, Jeff Wilson is on a tender, a 1-year tender. And he will not be under contract next year for the 49ers. Who knows what that looks like, based on what's going to happen. But you're talking about 4 to 6 weeks now. 4 to 6 months.
Yeah.
Months. Yeah. And listen, for everybody who's upset, Trey Sermon, Elijah Mitchell, Wayne Gallman's on this team now. There's no question. And apparently people are telling me in the chat right now that Wilson's money is guaranteed.
Fine.
So, yeah, I mean, I'm confused. This comes across as confusion right now. This came out of nowhere. It was like a left hook. I don't know when this happened. And
it's possible it happened before the draft and the Niners knew, and that's why they took 2 running backs. Or it's possible they just got lucky and it's like, hey, thank God we took 2 running backs.
So that's the question that I'll pose to you. When we talked about why did they draft 2 running backs, it's because depth is wealth. It's wealth in this league, and it's wealth for the 49ers, especially considering the year that they just came off of. Yeah. So was this something where Jeff had a chance to get his surgery whenever he did? And it sounds like no matter when he had the surgery, he would be out for this extended amount of time. But for 49ers fans, we're confused because this comes out of nowhere, especially after a day where OTAs happened. And we'll get into that in a little bit. And there was nothing to really sing home about or ride home about with any injuries, anybody doing anything out of the ordinary or anything like that. It's just now the 49er fans have to piece together when exactly this happened. When did he tear this meniscus? Would surgery earlier have maybe helped him clear all this
and
stuff?
Don't forget that they also signed Wayne Gallman. So that's 3 running backs they added to the team within the span of like a week. That's very suspicious. And they just happen to be ahead of the curve, get out in front of this Jeff Wilson Jr. thing before it, maybe. But if so, very fortuitous. If not, I'm suspicious, man. It almost makes it feel like it makes sense that they added all those running backs. Like they knew, man, we're down to Mostert and JaMychal Hasty.
So, process over results is what I preach. And when I was on your show a few weeks ago, you asked me who I thought the leading rusher on his team would be, and that was Trey Sermon. Now,
boom.
Trey Sermon now has a wide open shot to immediately be what the 49ers envision him to be, which is a feature back. So again, process wrong. Process right. Results
right.
wrong. Results
wrong.
Hey,
it could end up being Elijah Mitchell. It's going to be the last running back standing. Mitchell's going to get his ops.
And you have to think about this. 17 games, you have to add as much as you can. Add every single depth piece that you can at this point. It's really disappointing because when Jeff Wilson's on the field, he is effective. That's the best way I can put it. He runs angry, dark place that he goes to.
He runs as angry as anyone.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he runs that choice route as good as any running back on his team.
Yeah.
This is not a small loss. And with Trey Sermon, you kind of felt that he might fall behind Mostert, Wilson. But now, is Sermon right there behind Raheem Mostert at this point?
Absolutely. No question about it. No question about it. It's Mostert, Sermon, Mitchell. And I wouldn't count Mitchell out of this race, man. I want to see what he can do.
So where does Gallman sit on this team? Because when we did predictions, when it came to what running backs would be off, it was Gallman based on the contract for me because it's not guaranteed.
Yeah.
Gallman profiles as a much better Tevin Coleman at this point for this team. Where does he fit in now? Is he gonna be the guy? So Elijah Mitchell right now, if you're asking me, profiles as a 3rd down back, even though I think he's a little bit more than that right now. It's just based on where it is right now. So Mostert maybe starts. Trey Sermon comes in for a drive here and there. where does Gallman fit here? And this is
where's Hasty fit? I think it's going to come down to Gallman and Hasty for the number 4 spot. One guy goes to the practice squad or gets cut and goes somewhere else.
Okay. I mean, and listen, Wayne Gallman is very.
Because I think Wilson's going to start the season on whatever, like IR or however it'll be. Pup. Yeah. There you go.
Pup. If it's 4 to 6 months and we're talking about the season starting in a few months, it's got to be Pup, right? For a little bit.
Yeah.
It's just for 49er fans, there's a lot of frustration that I feel coming from not just Twitter. I'm sure I just feel it coming from the air. Hey, everybody's healthy. Hey, first day in the OTAs and the day was over and everybody's picking apart here and there, whatever quotes. Now you have to deal with Jeff Wilson being 4 to 6 months on a meniscus tear that didn't happen today.
And that's the story of the day. I'm sitting there trying to calculate what Trey Lance did, his completion percentage, Jimmy Garoppolo, and I'm like doing my good and the not so good. And the last thing is Jeff Wilson Jr. like didn't practice, don't know what that's about. And like none of us thought to ask Kyle like, yo, what's up with Jeff Wilson Jr.? Because there's so many more important things. And then that comes out and you're like, and we just asked, we would know exactly what would be Kyle. When did this happen? And the next time we talk to him, we'll ask and we'll know. But it's like we whiffed. We totally whiffed.
Yeah. And the other thing is when we were looking at the do not practice thing, I had to put a tweet out because people were putting do not practice, Nick Bosa, Jalen Hurd. Where was D Ford? D Ford wasn't on there. And so at first I started to send out tweets like, is D Ford practicing? And apparently he's clearly not. But injuries, man.
I don't think he'll ever practice again. He might play again. I don't think he'll ever practice again.
I mean, if the 49ers are smart, if D Ford is ready to go in any way, you don't practice him, you get him heated up for the game, which is their first mistake of messing him up, I think, in 2019, was stop messing around. The Chiefs never practiced him. They never practiced him ever once.
Well, this latest injury from D Ford happened in practice. That's why you don't practice him.
That's why you just get him heated. You get him heated up for the game.
I remember that day, man. He was on the field. They were talking. He was saying, "I feel great, really doing great." You saw him walking off. He never came back. There he goes. See you, D. Don't go, D. Come back, D.
Look at it like this, 49er fans. There is a half glass full approach to this. You signed Wayne Gallman. You drafted 2 running backs. This running back room should be fine. Yeah. And that doesn't mean that this team will pick someone else up later on to go with it. But I think that there was a bit of expectations when it came to Jeff Wilson Jr. about what he could bring to this team, what he could bring to this lineup. Because whenever he's on the field, he plays well.
I got a hot take.
Go for it.
If the Niners had given him Tevin Coleman's spot in the rotation in 2019, they'd be Super Bowl champions right now.
Ooh, man. That is a hot take.
That's a hot take. And I really feel that way. I think Jeff Wilson Jr. was a hell of a player, and he could have had a lot of the impact that Raheem Mostert had that year. Tevin Coleman hung on to that spot for no reason. They should have had Jeff Wilson Jr. made a play in that Super Bowl. He was one of the better plays in that game.
Yeah, and I mean, he has that choice route in his arsenal. He won that Arizona game. So this is my guy Brad. Grant owes the YouTube chat. Real quick before we move on to the next segment. I was in that same group chat for the press conference. So I saw that. I guess you were on a stream with Guy Haberman, friend of the program, friend of me, a friend of me. Great. Like that's Guy's great, Guy Haberman is one of my favorite people to talk to, on the Twitter sphere. But you literally, we want Grant. Where's Grant? Grant. And it's just
that's just because I monopolized YouTube. That's the only reason why I don't think Niner fans like me that much. But on YouTube, they might like me. I don't know.
You know what it is? Honestly, your transformation is better than Alex Rodriguez's transformation from straight up heel to straight up. You know what? He's actually really cool.
Yeah, hey, that's a good comparison. I'll take that. The Alex Rodriguez of Barry Sports. I'll take that.
It was honestly great to watch. Honestly, for me, I just, honestly, it's good because, you and I are friends. So it's just funny to see that when I jump in there. And then if I say, yeah, Grant too, they're like, oh, look, Jason, like there was a few like Jason comments in there, but it's all based on you. Honestly, I thought that was really funny. But no, honestly, this is a real bummer. After a day of nothing but good vibes, people practicing, guys, just being out there, people smelling the grass from wherever it is that they live, understanding that football season is on its way. We expected something from Jeff Wilson. We did. Yeah. And you know what? It's not to say that he won't contribute this year.
Don't write him off.
Right. 4 to 6 months But if he comes back 4 months in, 5 months in, I think 6 months is worst case scenario. 4 months is like if he takes the Russell Wilson Jesus juice and jumps in the blue tent that comes right back out.
But here's what's rough. I mean, he's a undrafted free agent in a contract year. He needs to play, and now he's going to miss the first few weeks of this season at least. If Mostert and Sermon are balling, or Mostert and Mitchell are balling, or Sermon and Mitchell are balling, then Jeff, we don't need you right now. Don't call us. We'll call you. We'll get back to you. And that's tough, man. Really rough sport. Sorry, Jeff.
I mean, honestly, I think Trey is going to be fine. Sermon, that is, by the way. I think that Trey's going to be fine. I think that, like I said, this team hasn't had a workhorse running back like him since Frank Gore. You can say whatever you want about Carlos Hyde being there, but I don't think that that's the same thing. Frank Gore's been there too long, but I think that Trey Sermon is something that they've been missing, and I think that Trey Sermon is the perfect complement. If we're talking lightning and thunder, we're talking Mostert, then we're talking Trey Sermon. I think the team shouldn't slip, but this is still a bummer for me to be on my program saying there's no way that this amount of injuries can happen again. It's mathematically impossible. I'm not off to a good start.
Day one of OTAs.
I'm not off to a good start. I'm really not. Like, it's
with Mitchell. I feel like Mitchell's more of like a replacement for Mostert down the line. So I do think it's going to be Sermon and Mostert. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. So Mitchell profiles more like the Mostert type. He has that speed. I think that, and it was Jordan at Splash Cousin also that put this little bit of knowledge on me. I think that when you say that Mitchell profiles immediately like Mostert, it's a little bit of a slap at Mostert because how he identifies where to go and how quickly he does it.
Oh, it's definitely a slap at Mostert. I wouldn't call him the next Mostert. I just feel like the Niners are putting him in that mold. Hoping.
The skill set is close enough. I agree, but
not every running back with 4.3 speed is Raheem Mostert, because Mostert is good. He's more than just a runner. More than just a fast sprinter, yes.
And yes, Niners worldwide, exactly. I can't believe we're talking about an injury this early. Honestly, yes. It's just, look, you can smell, you can hear, you can feel the frustration coming from 49er fans. And why wouldn't they be frustrated?